Hello everyone and welcome back to Introduction to Unreal. And in this lesson we're going to continue with our material building. Okay, so in the previous lesson we saw how to create like a basic material for our animated object, and in this one we're going to create a material for our base. Now I've already created one because I just wanted to show what we're going to make. But the idea would be like, what if you have a whole bunch of textures and you want to build like a full proper shader? So how do you go about doing that? Okay, so not just taking those textures, but also sort of building a whole bunch of controls for them. Okay, so this is what the final sort of material looks like. So it's a relatively huge material, but it's not like over complicated. Like the problem is that a lot of things that are kind of inbuilt in most material editors and render engines are, or actually like combined together, are not combined together in Unreal. So in that sense, Unreal is very close to how Mantra is, but it's actually even more broken down than Mantra. So it's like, if you want to do some basic color correction, you don't have like a color correction node. Okay, so you have to sort of combine a few things together to build color correction. So the idea here is to look at, like if you want to create like a big huge uber material, this is not all of it, but it should give you enough that you can build like almost any kind of a texture that you want or any kind of a material that you want. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so first of all, the texture is something that I built in Substance Alchemist. Okay, so this is my, like I have a more complex version of this where, like, if you notice here, it's got like these finer dots. So that is here. Okay, like if I turn that on, see, there you go. Okay, but I removed those for our version because like I want to do some variation on it, and it's easier if the pattern is on this fine. Okay, like on something like this, it'll be easier to notice if I do things. Okay, so if you don't have Substance Alchemist, you can use anything that you want. Like whatever is your go-to texture building software, you can use that. Or you can download them from like textures.com or wherever. Okay, so so once this is built, there is an option to export this. Okay, so it generates a whole bunch of maps, like it generates the whole thing. So you have base color, normal, roughness, metallic, height, and ambient occlusion. Okay, so it creates all of them, and then you can just sort of export it at like up to 4K. Okay, so like if you say export current view, it gives you all the way up to 4K. Okay, it doesn't go more than that, but this is good enough. And then whatever channels have been generated, it will export those. Okay, so so the first thing we need to do is we need to import them. Okay, so these are all the textures that were created. Okay, so I created a separate folder called textures. Okay, so what you can do is you can right click here and you can create new folder. Okay, so let's say we want to create a folder for our materials as well, so that it's just easier to organize. So you can create a folder and then we can drag drop stuff into that. Okay, so I have this folder called textures, so I can just double click here and I can take all of these and I'll just drag and drop them in here. Now when it detects a normal map, it gives you this. It says textures plane dot was imported as a normal map, which is fine. Now there is one change that you need to make with normal maps, okay, which was told to me by a friend of mine who is into game development. So you double click on the normal map and like this is usually closed. So come to texture and click on this little show advanced arrow and you'll find something called flip green channel. Okay, so turn that on and that's it, then save it. So you need to do this. If you don't, you can let me know in the comments, like I won't do it. Okay, but that's what my friend told me. He says like whenever you import a normal map, make sure you flip the green channel. Okay, because otherwise the normal map looks inverted. Okay, so to get started, I'll just create a new material and we'll call it material text. And what I'll do is I'll right click here, I'll create an instance material for it right away and just assign it to my base. Okay, so the base will be just blank. So now whatever setup we make in our material will keep getting reflected in the instance material as well. So double click here. The first thing we want to do is let's import the diffuse map or the color map. Okay, so we'll double click here and that's my color map and just drag and drop it in there. Okay, so it imports it as a texture sample, but if you want to show this in your material instance, you will have to promote this to a parameter. Okay, like if I just connect this right now, okay, and save it, you will start seeing this on your base. Okay, see, there you go. Okay, so we have it on our base. But if you come into the material instance, you won't see it here. Okay, like there's no option to change this texture if you want to. So what you need to do is double click on this, right click here and say convert to parameter. And we can call it, let's say, base color texture. And so now if I save it, and if I double click here, see, now you'll get this texture parameter value called base color, and then you can replace this. So if I come into my textures, and if I want to replace it with this guy, so you can replace it with that guy. Okay, so that is then possible. So when you drag and drop it into the material editor, it just comes in as like a constant node, and then you need to promote it to a parameter. Okay, so the first thing we can do is we can just bring in all of this. Okay, so except for the height map, we don't need the height map. So I'm going to take the ambient occlusion and the metallic, normal and roughness, and drag and drop all of them in there. Just space them out. And let's just promote them. Okay, so I'll just click here, say convert parameter. This will be metal texture. I believe this is roughness. Yeah, you can see what's there. And right click here, say roughness texture. This is AO, and then lastly, this will be, yeah. Okay, so we've done everything, and then we can just plug these in, and this will give me, my basic material. So I can just click here, and then these are all float values. So we can just pick up like one channel from here. Okay, so this is metallic, and then this is roughness. Yeah, see, there you go. Okay, and then there is a channel for AO, so we can just plug that in. And then lastly, we have the normal map, so which will be RGB, and there you go. So there you go. So we have like, everything that we want, and I can save this, and you'll see the effect happening over here. See, and so yeah, so I can't rotate the viewport right now because the camera is currently locked. So you can just come in here into your sequencer, and we can unlock the camera. But there you go. So we can just sort of see, this is the material that we have. Okay, so let's start from, so now the point is, like, if I come in here, you will have all 4 materials available to you. And then if we want, we can replace these. Okay, so I can just select this. And now this is like a proper material. So if I come into my textures, and I can replace these with anything that I want, and it will just, allow me to adjust this. So see, there you go. Okay, so you have like a completely different shader available to you. But yeah, let's just go back to normal for now. Alright, so we have our base material done. But the problem is that we have zero control over it. Like, we can't do tiling, we can't move the textures. What if you want to control the intensity of your roughness or anything like that? So we can't do any of those. So now what we'll do is we'll start building in those controls, okay, which is where the materials will start to look fairly complicated. So firstly, what I'll do is I'm going to disconnect all of these, and we'll just quickly save it. Okay. So we'll just go back to like the default material that we have with just a texture map. Okay. So the first thing is we want to be able to sort of tile and move and rotate the texture. So what you can do is you can right click, and you can take something called as texture coordinates. And if we plug this in, and you'll see like this has a tiling option. So if I just take this, and let's say if I make it 3 and 3 and save it, so we can start to tile the object. Okay, but the problem is these parameters can't be promoted. Okay, so we can't use this directly. So what you want to do instead is we want to build the tiling and the movement on our own. Like, firstly, the move option isn't there at all. So the way it works is if you add something to the coordinates, you will move it. And if you multiply it, you'll tile it. Okay, so what we can do is I can take, since this is UV, so we'll just take we can take like 2 scalar values. Okay, so just type in constant, and you'll find something called constant 2 vector. And we'll take 2 of these. So do Control C, Control V. So this will be for movement. This will be for tiling. Okay, so the tiling default will be 1 and 1. And what we do is we first take an add. And so we add the texture coordinates with these values and we plug it in. And then let's say if I just take this and I make it say 0.6 and click save, and you'll see now we can move the texture. So both like horizontally and vertically. Okay, so the next step is we want to tile it. So take a multiply and we plug this into multiply. Let me just save it. Okay, and now if I take these and let's say if I make them 3 and 3. So there you go. So now we have these two things that can be promoted to parameters, and these will give me controls. So the last thing we want to do is we want to rotate it. So right click here and take rotate, and you'll find something called as custom rotator. Okay, so click that, and what you want is you want to bring in the UVs, and we need two things here. Okay, so we need the center, which is vector 2. So we'll do Control C, Control V. And this is usually between 0 and 1. Okay. And then we need a single value for rotation, which is also between 0 to 1. So 1 becomes 360 degrees and 0 becomes 0. So we can right click here and take a constant. And let's plug this in here. Let's plug that in there. Let me just save it. So we go back to normal. Yeah. And now we can plug this in. So this is what you need to do in order to get your textures to rotate. Okay, so this guy, if I rotate it to say 0.3, so there you go. So now we can rotate the texture. All right, so now that we've built this much, we need to start promoting these to parameters. So we'll have controls. But the problem is you can't promote this directly to parameter. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to do a bit of like a float to vector thing. Okay, so what you need to do is we'll just take a single constant. We'll promote this to a parameter. Okay, so this will be, let's say, move X. Okay, it should be U and V, but okay, let's just rename it to move U, and this will be move V. Okay, and slider min max, let's keep it 0 and 1. And then what you can do is you need something called as make float 2. Okay, so which is it will combine two float values and give you like a vector 2. And then we can connect these two guys in here and plug that in there. So it will give me the same thing. It's just a little more work, but these two will now be visible. Okay, and then we can do the same thing for all of this. Okay, so we need to take, like I'll take these two, Control C, Control V. This will be tile U, slider max, let's keep it to 10. Okay. Or actually let's keep it to 100. But this is tiling, right? Yeah, so this comes in here. And this will be center. So center U and center V. So this comes in over there. And this can just be promoted. So we'll just do convert to parameter and let's call it angle. Okay, so if we have done everything right, let's just save this. Yeah, hold on. Yeah, this is the problem. This should be the default value should be 1. So what should happen is if we come into our material instance, you'll see like we have all of these parameters. And what I can do is I can actually just, like rotate this and I can move it and I can tile it. So yeah, it's work, but then you get all the controls that you want. So now the next thing we want to do is we connect this to, everything. Okay, so we'll just take all of this, move it back, and this will connect to all of our maps. if you feel like one of the like nodes is getting too long, you can take like a reroute. Okay, so you can right click here and take a reroute, and then we can connect this into here and then connect that over there. Okay, so this will give me like a little more space. Okay, and then we can plug these back in. So metallic, roughness, and normal. Yeah, so now we are in a good position. Like now if we come in here and I can just take, let's make the tiling slightly higher. So let's make the tiling about 3 by 3. No, I think 2 by 2 should be okay. Okay, so the basic tiling control is there now. Okay, now let's set up like a couple of things. Okay, so I won't go too deep into it because it's a very huge material system. Okay, but it just to give you like enough information. Okay, so let's say if you want to control the normal amount. Okay, so the way to do that is you take something called as a flatten normal, and you plug in the normal through that. Okay, and then we'll need a value to control the amount. So I can right click and take a constant. Now the problem is that this goes reverse. That means that 0 is a value of, like at 0 it won't flatten at all, and at 1 it will flatten it completely. Okay, so at 1 you won't see any normals. But what we want is it to work like a bump map, right? Like which is like 0, nothing is happening, and then 1, it is at full value. So what you want to do is you want to right click here and take a 1 minus, which is sort of like an invert. Yeah, so take a 1 minus and then plug it in through this, and that comes in here. So it will basically like invert whatever value you're putting in, and that comes in over there. And then we can right click here and then promote this. So we'll say convert to parameter. Let's call it normal intensity. Okay, and then just for one additional thing, let's say you want to control like this, you can apply to all of them, right? But let's say if I have like the roughness and I want to control, how much is the roughness, or I want to, let's say I want to reverse the metal texture value. Okay, so what I can do is, the simplest way to do it is you take it in through a mix map and you do like a value of, you're basically doing like a fit range. So what you're saying is like you take it in through a mix map, you set up 2 values, and then if you like move those values, you'll be able to get better control. Okay, so right click here. A mix is called a linear interpolate. We did it in the last class. So just look for like lerp and it will give you like linear interpolate. And we want 2 values. Okay, so again, right click, take a constant, and I can just promote this to parameter. Okay, so let's call this metal A, or no, let's call it metal min. Okay, and let's do metal max. So this will be 1, this will be 0, and so this comes in here, that goes in there, and the metal value comes in here. And then I'm going to take this and duplicate it for the roughness. So Control C, Control V, and let me just move these guys down, and let's rename these. Okay, so this will be rough minimum, and yeah, so you have to do this once, and then after that, all the materials that you have in your scene, you can just duplicate this. Okay, unless you have like a specific material that has opacity or something. But for all your solid objects, you can just use this one shader for everything. So I can just take this and plug it in over there. And let's plug these guys in. So you won't see any change right now, but we'll be able to change it later. Okay. And as a final thing for the color, let's say if we want to just do some basic like a hue shift. Okay. So you get something called a hue shift. So you can just right click here and take a hue shift. And I can plug this in. Sorry, yeah, this goes below, and then we'll need a value for the hue shift. So take a constant, and again we'll right click here, convert to parameter, let's call it hue shift. Okay, and this comes in here. Okay, so hopefully we've done everything right, and if I save this, Yeah, and we'll come back to our material. And so now what we have is, like, firstly I can, like, change the hue. Like, it's mostly dark, but then the colored areas you can change the hue. And then I can, like, define the metalness. See, so I can make the circles are now metallic and the background isn't metallic, so you can, make changes like that. And then we can also adjust, like, the normal intensity. See, so there you go. See, you can see the normal intensity changing. And then lastly we can control the roughness. So we can, like, see, so this is less rough and this is more rough. Okay, so we can sort of control. Yeah, see, so we can, like, and then if you want to change these textures, we can change the texture. So if I come in here and let's say if I want, let's say we replace these guys. So see, there you go. Okay, so I can just take, like, all of these and replace them. See, so we can get, like, a completely different result. So once you build, like, that one shader that you want, then everything else is just a question of replacing and adjusting the values as you want them. Yeah, not the best color to use because it is blending with the background, but there you go. Okay. Yeah, so there you go. So this is how you can build, like, a full shader in Unreal. Okay, so it's a bit of work, but as I said, like, you have to do it once. Okay, there are also ways to migrate your shaders from one project to another. I haven't really explored that area, but you can do that. Okay, so you can actually just once you build, like, one sort of super uber shader, you can just copy paste that into any other project that you want. So you don't need to do this, again and again every single time. Okay, so before I close this, like, a little bit of self promotion. Okay, firstly, the Cyber Monday Black Friday sale is on. So on my website, which is the sale will be from 26th to 3rd December. And all of my new trainings, which are, like, the definition for new is anything recorded over Houdini 16. So all of that stuff is currently at 50% off. So anybody who wants, you can sort of look into them. Okay, and all of my older trainings, like the ones that were pre Houdini 16, so sort of like you have like the motion graphics training. Okay, so this stuff is at 65% off. Okay, so from 26th to 3rd, like, it's already the 27th now. But yeah, so you have to, like, 3rd December. If you're interested, you can look into that. And for anyone who's interested, I have my Patreon as well now. So if anybody wants to support me, you can, support me there. Currently, the training that I'm going through is, you can see the trailer for it over here. Like, what I'm doing is I'm going through all the texturing tools that are available in Houdini, but I'm doing it at SOP level. Okay, so you're not locked down just to mantra. Okay, like, you can use those techniques and you can apply it to any render engine that you want. But it's not just like a texturing thing. You can also use them to do, like, other effects. Like, you want to do some motion graphic stuff or things like that, you can use it pretty much anywhere. Okay, so it's an ongoing series. The first 2 videos are now available, and I'll be uploading on a weekly basis till the series goes on. Okay, so yeah, anyone who's interested, you can sort of look up either one of these 2 things. Okay, coming back to this, our shaders are done. Okay, so the next thing on the list is what is called as the post-processing volume. So the post-processing volume is essentially a color grading tool. Okay, and other things as well. So it allows you to color grade your scene, and it also gives you control for ray tracing and stuff. Okay, so that is really important because when you want to get the final look of your scene, you need a post-processing volume. Okay, so that's what we'll take a look at in the next lesson.